Everyone wants good aim, but not everyone knows how to achieve it.
In fact, only a select few mortals in our world were selected by the higher beings to have godlike aim.
Talent only takes you so far, though. Without the proper training to back it up, you won't be able to take those talents to the upper limits. What exactly is proper aim? There's so many different techniques required, and an even smaller number of players have mastered them. One of those players is Cryocells, a young player who has made huge waves in North America stepping onto the Valorant scene. He currently holds a top 10 position on the Valorant leaderboard, and rocks an insane 30% headshot rating, which is one of the highest amongst the pros. Cryocells has truly found and mastered the secrets to aim, and we're gonna break down those secrets in today's video. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Before we get into more though, remember,
when you see those clips of pro players who landed a nasty 4K, there's so many little tricks those players are doing that allow them to play like that. That's why over at SkillCapped, we break down those plays into simple, easy to follow steps so that even a even a baby could hit a mortal. Is this right?
Yeah.
A baby.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
He was 2 years old.
Okay. Well, there you have it. Even a baby could hit a mortal, and you can too with just a little help from SkillCapped, link in the description below.
First up, from watching Cryocells, he's actually one of the most patient players in the scene. He's not one to just run in there and frag his mind out. Rather, he tends to play methodical and positions himself based on where he predicts an enemy to be. Taking this clip into consideration, Cryocells shows an ugly shootdown against Sova, but from there, it's all precision. He anticipates someone's going to flank him, so he picks an off angle to wait for this flank. Already, he's in a good position as the enemy won't expect this. Now, someone flanking is likely going to be walking, so Cryocells places his crosshair close to the wall in anticipation for this. That way, the enemy will walk straight into his crosshair, and he doesn't even need to move his mouse. One left click, and boom, they're dead. For the rest of these frags, Cryocells essentially picks a position and waits for the enemy to peek into his crosshair, rather than peeking into theirs. He ends up having to move for Astra, because she didn't peek him. Because of that move though, he has a good idea of where the Astra's holding. The delayed peek catches Astra off guard as well, and nets Cryo another kill. All the prep work is done for these frags, and he simply has to wait for the enemy to run into his setup. Once they fall into the trap, it's a simple click of the mouse. If you find yourself having to move your mouse a lot during duels, chances are you aren't doing enough prep for the duel in regards to crosshair placement and reading the enemy's move. These two factors together affect how difficult an aim duel is going to be. If you put your crosshair in the wrong spot or don't predict how the enemy will peek, you'll have to make an adjustment. This then takes up more time required for you to get the elimination. Cryocells always predicts the enemy's movements and placing his crosshair accordingly. That way, the enemy just peeks into it, and it's easy pickings. From what we've seen, most players focus a lot on crosshair placement. Keep things head level, am I right? But then they don't consider that second piece of enemy movement. This leads to them placing the crosshair too close or too far horizontally from where the enemy peeks out. And well, now you're gonna miss your shots. Combine these two factors together, and just wait. If you think the enemy will push you, just stay in place and let him push into your perfectly placed crosshair. Going off that, one of the most overlooked aspects of aiming is actually using utility to guide your shots. By looking at the direction that an ability is coming from, you can better identify where an enemy is hiding, and this information gives you a better idea of where exactly you want to place your crosshair prior to a duel. This next clip is a much more extreme example. Cryo gets hit with a KO knife and Sova drone on CAD. With this much utility used, a peek from Link is highly likely. Knowing this, Cryo goes for a quick pre-fire onto Lynx and snags a frag. That jet was definitely tilted after that. From there, a Sova dart identifies two other players in the middle, chambers the closer target, and was spotted hugging the right side of Cat. Having seen that, he sets up his crosshair so it'll be perfectly aligned at that angle when he peeks. It's a matter of executing the peek properly and getting out safely, which he does. We're not done there though. While dismissing he saw a player towards Link, he realigns his crosshair again so it lines up at that general position when he peeks. This leads to another kill. Although the enemy had another teammate that traded the frag, nonetheless though, Cryo was able to grab these crispy frags with the help of abilities from either the enemy team or his teammates, which helped him with crosshair placement. Next up, we wouldn't have a high headshot percentage without some precision involved. Most pros will knock out a player in less than 10 bullets, and if you're Cryo, you can frag out with a quick burst of 3 to 5 bullets. Cryo will rarely ever spray down enemies. If it's a mid to long range duel and he misses the first burst, he'll stop shooting and let his recoil reset. That way, he has time to adjust his aim, but also ensure he only shoots high quality, accurate bullets. With this adjustment, he'll usually get the frag with his next burst fire. Cryo really emphasizing the style of only going for burst fires. In this clip, he faces 4 enemies straight in the eye, bursts them down one by one, pausing between each kill to line up his crosshair for the next player. Other pros will look like they burst fire as well, but not to the same extent. For the first kills, they look like they're bursting only because they too have spectacular aim, so that they only need a small number of bullets to get the elim. Players should always strive to eliminate the enemy with the least bullets possible. A good way to practice this is to focus on burst firing enemies, either in the practice range or in deathmatch. Aim to get a frag within those shots, and if you don't, stop shooting, reset your recoil, and go again. Moving on. Now, enemies aren't always going to appear where you expect them to. Sometimes the enemy finds an off angle that you aren't ready for. Most of these angles aren't going to be too far from where your crosshairs are already placed. With that in mind, it's important to master short flick shots, which Cryo is insane at doing. In this clip, Cryo anticipates a player to be in the center of C, and so he places his crosshair there. When he peeks, he notices the player's actually to the left, and he makes a quick micro adjustment. A little lucky with the double kill, but we take those. No matter how much you practice that perfect crosshair placement, there will be situations where you'll have to make these small adjustments. Cryo is a master at doing this, to ensure he can still win duels when he's caught off guard. This also allows him to go for those consecutive burst kills that we just highlighted. Now, how do we practice this? One of the most popular ways the pros warm up their flick shots is by going into the practice range and spawning a bunch of bots. From there, you want to practice doing this from close range, as well as long range. This will help you be prepared to make micro adjustments regardless of what distance you're dueling someone at. Perform each distance for about 5 minutes each. This won't make you an immediate aim god, but it'll certainly help you hit some nutty shots like Cryocells in the long run. The next point is all about movement. Movement plays a big role in aiming. We would love to just sit in a position and wait for the enemy to peek us, but in many situations, you're gonna have to move because the enemy doesn't peek, or you're trying to push a choke point. If you can perfectly match your character movements with your mouse movements, you'll be able to hit some insane shots. One of the basic movement patterns in Valorant is shoulder peeking. This is when you gradually peek a position, making just enough movement to see a bit more ground than you did earlier. By performing these gradual shoulder peeks, you ensure that 1, you don't expose yourself too much to the enemy, and 2, you ensure that if an enemy is present, you won't have to make too big of an adjustment in your crosshair to eliminate them. Cryo displays this perfectly in this clip, where he slowly peeks the right side of A long to kill Jet. He does the same small gradual peeks to peek A side and is able to snag the frag onto Sova without too much difficulty. These shoulder peeks are the bread and butter of movement in Valorant. However, with how much mobility is available in the game, you want to master the more advanced techniques as well. By doing so, you'll be able to catch enemies off guard, thus giving them less time to react and more time for you to line up your aim and get the frag. One of these techniques involves the zipline on A side of Icebox. With the right timing, or Jet's glide, you can get off the zipline and land onto pipes. Most players in the game are not even aware you can do this. As a result, you can snag some surprise kills by using mobility to put yourself in unexpected places. Another aspect we want to highlight here is how often Cryo repositions himself. He started off pipes and dashed off, and then gets up on boxes to peek pipes and nest. After that, he drops down to maze to go for pipes. This constant repositioning keeps the enemies on their toes. You know where the enemy is, but the enemy doesn't know exactly where you're going to peek from. This makes it harder for the enemy to land their shots, and easier for you to align your crosshair in the right place to land your shot. Cryo does a really good job of predicting enemy plays while making himself unpredictable. This gives him a favorable duel, and thus an easier time of aiming. One of the most overlooked tools in Valorant to help with aiming is the pinging feature. You've probably seen this most commonly with pinging the spike when someone's about to go for a defuse. This helps you and your team line up the crosshairs to kill the diffuser. Particularly when you're blocked off by utility, the use of pinging is extremely helpful. Not even a pro can see through a smoke. Which is why Cryo placed a ping outside B main here to make sure his crosshair was in the corner rather than at a blank wall. He confirms he's in the right spot and goes for the spray down for an easy tilt kill. Next time you're blocked by utility, consider using your pings to line up your shots, rather than spraying recklessly and hoping for a lucky shot. And that's all we have for today's video. We hope today's guide gave you a few new tricks in your toolbox for the next time you're taking an aim duel.
That's all we got for our video today, but remember that if you're really looking to improve at Valorant, I highly recommend checking out SkillCapped.com. We get it, you're just a player trying to get better at the game. That's why you're watching this video in the first place. You're capable of hitting that rank you deserve, but there's no shame in asking for a little help. At SkillCapped.com, we spend hours going through viewer-submitted replays to let you know all the mistakes that you're making. We also couple this with our Smurf commentaries to show players that it is possible to carry themselves out of whatever rank they're stuck in. It might seem hopeless at times, but trust me when I say we can help you out. All you have to do is check out SkillCapped.com. Link in the description below.